everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my blush roulette project. This is my second year embarking on this particular project. As part of my conscious consumerism, makeup low buy, makeup no buy sort of ethic approach to makeup, I do a lot of individual projects which encourage me and allow me to get familiar with my whole makeup collection and declutter any products I'm not loving, pan the products that are close to being finished, all that kind of stuff. I do project pans, linked here. I do makeup low buys, linked here. And last year I started embarking on a blush roulette where I take one blush in my collection and I focus on it for an entire month. And this worked out really well in 2024 because I had exactly 12 powder blushes somehow. And so each one got a full month. I ended up decluttering 4 powder blushes as part of that project. I didn't pan any blushes last year. Well, I panned one cream blush, but obviously I wasn't able to pan any of my powder blushes because I was cycling through them so quickly. And you know, in order to actually finish a powder blush, you need to be working on it pretty dedicatedly for like 6 to 12 months. So I have mentioned in 2025, I do want to pan one of my powder blushes, but I will again be embarking on a blush roulette. I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently this year, but I just loved how it went last year. And I love that approach, not just for the reason of being able to move products out of my collection that I wasn't loving anymore, but also because it meant that I was using all of the blushes in my collection, which of course for blushes that I don't like very much, it's hard for me to incentivize myself to reach for them. I just don't do it unless I have a project in place like this. So I had actually planned to do a separate video where it was like a wrap up of my 2024 blush roulette and then a introduction to my 2025 blush roulette project, but I'm just combining them together now because it is obviously already February, so it's a little bit late to do a separate video for the wrap up. So we're just combining them today. Obviously there is some overlap in the way that I felt about some products at the end of 2024 influenced how I'm going to be using them in my 2025 blush roulette. So we are going to be talking about that all today. Let's just get into it. I will start with the blushes that I was using in the final months of 2024, and then after that I will talk about the blushes that I have been using and will be using in the first few months of 2025. My 3 final blushes for 2024 were this MAC blush in Angel. This was my October blush. This MAC blush in Warm Soul, November blush, and this Tarte, it's actually a mini blush in Party. Ooh, we're a bit dusty. It's been a few months since I used these, but let's start with the October blush. I have actually talked about this blush quite a bit recently because tragic events took place. This actually took a big fall off my dresser and it shattered, unfortunately. I don't know if it's that like high-end products are pressed more loosely, but I have found that this kind of thing only happens to my high-end products. I have a Tarte eyeshadow, like a single pressed eyeshadow, and that has also broken many times from falling. And like, you know, products fall. It happens, but it doesn't happen to all of my products, just the high-end ones. Anyways, I like the shade of this blush a lot. It's very different from anything else in my collection, and I do find that I have to use quite a bit of it in order to show up, obviously because of the shade, but having it break like this allowed me to envision something differently for the blush. After it broke, I decided to depot part of it into this other container and then crush up that remaining product very small. I mean, okay, some of the particles are larger than others, but that's what it's currently looking like. I didn't want to turn the whole blush into a loose powder just in case I didn't like how it turned out, and I also didn't want to repress it because unless you know how like crumbly this particular blush is, I don't think you can appreciate what a bad idea repressing it would be. It will not work. It would not work. I don't think you would be able to get it back into like a solid form after repressing it. So this seemed like a good middle ground, and I have been using this under my eyes every single day. It's what I'm wearing today. I really don't think you can tell that much of a difference between a powder this shade and a powder that is in like a regular my skin tone shade. I mean, you can let me know. There's obviously other stuff going on my face today. I have not yet mentioned, but I did some blush draping today. It's more obvious in real life. I think when you look at the side of my face, it doesn't look super dramatic, but like head on, it's like, there's quite a bit of blush going on. So anyways, I've been enjoying that. I think it will take a long time to get through because obviously I'm just using it on such a small portion of my face, but this is not the kind of thing that I will get tired of, and it kind of keeps the powder application in my makeup process more interesting because I use this product for under my eyes and a different powder for all over my face. So I don't feel like, oh, I've just been using the same powder for like months and months and months, because at least I'm using 2 different powders on my face. So anyways, I don't know the chances of me finishing this up as a blush. I think I should still include it and like give it its own month in 2025 as part of my blush roulette, but I'm not eager to have that be anytime soon, particularly because I just used it in October. So, you know, it hasn't been that long, but also it's just so much harder to use a brush when it's been broken, obviously. So I will continue using it throughout the year in this form, just not so much in blush form. Maybe we can use it again in like September or October or something in 2025. The next blush is this. Oh, maybe I should like swatch it. Can I swatch it from its loose powder form? I don't know if that's gonna work. Yeah, it looks super powdery, obviously. Can you even see it? So pale. And then we've got Warm Soul, which has always been a favorite in my collection. That's why I made it a November blush. The way that I organized my blushes in 2024 was in order of how much I like them, but it also got a little bit of hard pan, so I just scraped some off. So I wonder if that contributed to me not feeling like it was as interesting a blush. But this is one that is also very lightly pigmented, so I have to apply quite a bit in order for it to show up. That's it there. So a nice nude blush, but not a favorite anymore. I don't really have anything else to say about this. It's good. It layers well with other cream blushes because it is such a neutral, but again, because I used it recently, maybe I just need a little bit of break from it. Whereas when I think about my like spring summer blushes, I'm a little bit more excited to reach for those again because it feels like I haven't used them in half a year, which I haven't, obviously. The next one is this Tarte one in Party, and I am including this in my project pan for 2025 because I really think I can get it used up because there is so much pan already on there. Let's swatch that. I would say it's a fairly similar shade to MAC Warm Soul, but more pinky, where Warm Soul is coral. It's just similar in that it's not super pigmented. So it pairs well with other blushes. If I ever feel like I need a little bit more on my cheeks, this is a good one to reach for because I'm never going to go like over the top with it. It pairs well with other eye looks, with whatever lip look. Again, just a good neutral color. And when I mean neutral, I don't mean like undertones. I just mean like it's not one way too pink or too orange or too purple or whatever. And so if I have a bright orange eye look, it'll go well with that. If I have a green eye look, it'll also go well with that. And I think I don't have a ton of blushes that I feel like I could pair well with whatever look I'm doing on my eyes. So this is still a favorite, and I don't know if this will get its own month in 2025 in the blush roulette, or if I should just be trying to use it a little bit, like a few days every single month to get it used up. I have not figured that out yet. Probably it would be better to use it a few days every single month. But I'm actually filming this in the final couple days of January right now, and I haven't used this since my December month with it in 2024. But again, I used it so recently that I'm like not super, I don't feel like I need to reach for it right now, but I kind of do if I want to project pan this year. So those were the 3 final blushes in my 2024 blush roulette. It makes sense that these were the ones that I left till the end of the year, but I do think that in 2025 my favorites list has kind of shifted somewhat because of what I learned in my 2024 blush roulette. Like, for example, there is a Milani blush that I thought I didn't like it very much, but after the month using it, I'm like, wow, that is one of my favorites. So maybe that'll be higher on the list than this MAC one. I mean, probably, because like, look at that. So I will have to rearrange things in 2025, but also I have a lot more blushes that I need to incorporate into my list because I have 4 fewer blushes, but I also have 2 blush trios that I did not incorporate into the project last year, and I have 3 new cream blushes. So let's move on to talking about that now. I've mentioned this before, but I just want to say I succeeded so hard at my blush roulette in 2024, and I think this is especially important because I failed my makeup no-buy so hard. I brought 25 new makeup products into my collection when I was supposed to be on a makeup no-buy. So the fact that this project is one that I really succeeded at, this goal like went over really well. I'm like, okay, this is something that I can attach to be like 2024 wasn't a complete fail in terms of like my makeup life. In terms of my goals for this year, for the blush roulette, I want to continue curating down my collection. You might think, wow, that's going to be hard because you just decluttered all of your least favorite blushes already. You got 4 blushes out of your collection out of a total of 12. So like, how many more are there that you don't want anymore? But I brought new blushes into my collection, you know, since the beginning of 2024. So that means my collection has expanded again, and I want to keep it curated. And the only way to do that is to, you know, keep moving out the older ones, because there was definitely blushes. If you watch my 2024 blush roulette project, there were definitely blushes that I was like kind of on the fence about, that I was like, you know, I enjoyed this, but it's not a favorite, and I'm just looking forward to the end of the month so that I can move on to the next blush. So I'm going to be focusing on some of those blushes in the first half of this year and seeing if it is their turn to leave. And I don't generally encourage decluttering just to make space for new products. And to be clear, I don't. But the fact that by the end of 2024, you know, I had decluttered 4 blushes over the course of the year, and by the end of the year, 3 of those blushes had already gone to new homes. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, oh, these are blushes that it's going to be so hard to find new homes for. It's like, no, people are eager to receive these blushes, whether they're friends or, you know, me posting on Facebook buy nothing groups in my area or buns or whatever. These are blushes that other people want, and so I should just get them to those other people as soon as possible, rather than them just continuing to be neglected in my collection. So the first few months, I'm going to treat myself a little bit. I'm going to use blushes that I really do enjoy, or blushes that are somewhat new that I haven't had gotten to enjoy yet. And then we're going to get back into the hard work of using the blushes that I don't love as much. But on top of continuing to declutter this year, another one of my goals is to actually allow myself to use the blushes that I did not allow myself to use in 2024. Because we're going to start with this because these are my January and February blushes. I received these as presents from like Christmas, Hanukkah, 2023. So I had them in my collection at the very beginning of 2024. And I probably used them each like max 5 times in 2024, despite the fact that they were new and I was so excited to use them. I just didn't let myself because of the blush roulette. So this year I want to enjoy them, get to know them, because I haven't yet. So it's the end of January now, and I have been using this one. They're in the shades Beautiful Earthling and Babe from Saint-Tropez. I've been using Beautiful Earthling for the past 3 weeks. Now I actually haven't gotten as much use out of it as I would have hoped, because January has been a fairly quiet month for me in terms of like social obligations. So the past 2 weeks, I did my makeup maybe 2 days per week, whereas usually I would do my makeup 4 to 5 days per week. But if I'm home all day not seeing anyone, I generally don't do much. This is the palette. It pretty much looks untouched still because, again, I have not used it that much. This was the blush that I used to create this beautiful blush draping look, because in my previous video, which was all about my failure of my 2024 makeup no buy, I talked about how there's still so many like creative makeup looks that I sort of have in mind, but I never do them. I never put them on my face because they're a bit too much. So today I had time to film, and all I'm doing, it's a Sunday, so all I'm doing is like, you know, grocery shopping and errands, laundry, cleaning, that kind of thing. So it's a good day to wear a fun makeup look, and I had kind of dared myself to do it last week, so here I am actually embodying that dare. Anyways, that's not usually the one that I've been reaching for lately. Over the past few weeks, I have just been using these two, and more especially this one, because it's just such a nice nude shade. It layers well with anything. This one is obviously a little bit more bold and not what I've been preferring to reach for lately in general. But actually, let's swatch all three. I want to see how similar that nude one is to the Tarte Party blush. This middle one I really have not used very much, because even though it looks fairly light, it's still got some oomph to it. It's quite pigmented, and obviously so is the hot pink one. Oh, this is interesting. The middle one is actually looking more pigmented than the hot pink one. So that's the hot pink one. I had to swatch it more times than the second one. So that second one, and this is that nude one, and that is Tarte Party. So I would say they're similar-ish, although the Jason Wu one is more pigmented. But the shades are similar, I think. The Jason Wu one is a little bit more coral. So yeah, all three super, super pretty. This is my January blush palette. I have a trip next week. I'm going to be away for like 3.5 days, and I think that this is what I am going to be bringing, even though it's like the last day of January and then the first 3 days of February. So technically I should be using my February blush, but I just haven't gotten enough use out of this and I love it. So this is what I've been reaching for lately. And in February, the other one is going to be my blush, and this one has been reached for a little bit more. Not sure if you can tell, but I can certainly tell there's a bit more usage. This is more of a orange palette. So let's swatch these ones. It looks very similar to the first shade of the previous palette, actually. Wow, that coral, that orange shade, super orangey. So see how these first two look similar to each other? And then, I'm sorry about my swatch, that's the orange one there. So obviously that one is super different. Interesting. I don't think they're the same shades, but they certainly do look similar. Yeah, they definitely don't look the same, but they swatch similar. So I will be excited to get to know this palette quite a bit more in February, and looking forward to my last week of using this one in January. It's nice to have a little treat where I like know that I will love the way that my blush turns out every day, because with some of these blushes, you just don't know. You just don't know. I also always pair a cream blush with my powder blush. This is to, you know, have a little bit more variety in my collection, but also some days I only use cream blush. If I don't feel like doing a full face, probably what I'm doing is a little bit of brow gel, curling my lashes, maybe a tiny bit of mascara, and then a little bit of cream blush. And this has been my go-to cream blush lately. This is from Beauty Counter. I only recently opened it, even though I purchased it in October in Ulta. And it's a really nice neutral, very nude. This was sort of replacing my Milk makeup cream blush in work, because that really left a gap in my collection when I panned it. And I will swatch it. I find it's kind of sticky, and also the blush gets a lot of like little particles on it, which is annoying. But maybe that's normal for a cream blush. I'm not sure. This is it there along the top. So it's similar to those two middle shades, and even a little bit that one, I would say. But it's just a nice formula, and this can really be like built up or sheared out. So yeah, been loving this, especially in tandem with that blush trio. I started off the year by having the Glossier Cloud Paint as my cream blush. I love it, like I really, really do. It's just a bit more difficult because you have to be so careful about how much of it you apply. So I don't even usually squeeze it out when I'm using it. I will just like tap it to my hand, and then whatever happens to be sort of like around the neck of it, like that is it. That's what I'm using. It does blend out really, really well, really nicely, but that is assuming that you are able to use only just the tiniest bit. And I don't find that this is the best blush to be using if I don't have any face makeup on. Like if I've got full foundation, concealer, everything, it looks great. But if I don't, I find sometimes it can sort of exaggerate the redness. If I have like little pimples or whatever, like around my jaw or on my forehead or nose, it makes my skin look more rouge, like not in a nice way. Whereas this blush, because it's a nude, it doesn't sort of pull out the red parts of my skin. But I do need to keep trying to use this because I barely used it in 2024. I just need to be careful with how much of this I'm using, but I do love it. Great blush. And because I don't have that many cream blushes, I think I will probably keep these as my go-to cream blushes. Well, probably this for February and then this for March, going into the next few months of the year, just to make sure that I am using them, because I only have like 5 cream blushes total versus 12-ish powder blushes. Okay, so that is January and February using new blushes / blushes that I am excited about. Then is when we get into the blushes that I am not excited about and that are potentially going to be decluttered. So, okay, I never thought I would be saying this, but this Hourglass palette might have its turn of being decluttered this year. This is the blush / blush palette that I am going to be focusing on in March. Maybe I'll give myself a little bit longer, like a month and a half, because it is a blush trio, but I kind of know how I feel about it already, so maybe it won't take that long. But I am actually going to be focusing on each of these blushes individually. I just feel like it'll be easier to know for sure how I feel about it if I'm focusing specifically on each blush. So this one I will give a week, this one I will give a week, and this one I will give a week. And then the final week of the month, I will be focusing on all of them, or, you know, I'll take another 3 weeks and focus on all of them. But I just want to know for sure how I feel about each of them, because I've never done that. I've always focused on this blush as a whole. Like I brought it on trips and then I just use all 3 of them together. In my blush roulette last year, I focused on it all together, but I think it's just easier if I keep them individual in my mind, even though practically you can't do that. Like if I decide that I love one and I hate the other 2, tough luck, the whole thing is still going to get decluttered. But anyways, this is my Hourglass blush palette in Ambient. This is my only product. That's a lie. I have one other product from Hourglass and it is equally beautiful. It also has this beautiful gold packaging, and that's why I haven't decluttered it, because I love the outside, but I do not like the product within. So not sure if I've just been unlucky with Hourglass products, but I haven't liked any of them very much. So yeah, what do you think? Oh, it's so nice. Such a solid gold bar, but I do not reach for this organically. I only reach for it when I have to. At least that's how it's gone the past 2 years. And I think this is the #1 blush that needs to get decluttered this year. So this is my March blush, and just fingers crossed I figure out one way or another. Right now I'm thinking it will get decluttered, but if I decide not to declutter it, I better have a pretty good excuse for you next time we do this update recap thing. And then my April blush is this Wet n Wild one, and that's because this is the blush that I think I am next most likely to declutter. I want to see if these factored into my first quarter of blushes to see if last year they were also my least favorites, but I started off the year with my Tarte blush trio, which ended up getting decluttered, and then my collection brush quad, which also ended up getting decluttered, and then the Hourglass palette in March, so it was in my first quarter, and then my NYX blush, which also ended up getting decluttered. Out of my first 4 blushes in 2024, I ended up decluttering all of them except for this one, and I ended up decluttering all of my blush palettes, trios, except for this one, and obviously these ones, which I had just been gifted, so they were not leaving anytime soon. So that's a sign. But anyways, this was definitely in the first half of the year, I believe, because I used to love it, and I don't love it so much anymore. And it's so funny because you can still see the imprint on there, even though I feel like I've used it so much. This is in Mellow Wine, extremely old blush, but still good pigmentation, still applies just the same as it ever did. No change in formula, color, consistency, anything. So I think that this could, I mean, obviously this one could find a new home, but I think this one probably could as well. Why am I not swatching these? What am I doing? It's because I've run out of space on my hand. Wow, that's so powdery and shimmery. I don't love a shimmery blush. I'd rather have a matte blush and then just apply as much highlight as I want. So these are them here. 1, 2, 3. These are super similar, but this is more like a highlight, I would say. Like, it's similar to my Becca highlight, which is kind of like a pinky. That is obviously quite bright pink, but it's a very glowy one, and then that is not super pigmented. So I could see myself liking the third one, the less pigmented one, and I could see myself liking the middle one as a highlight shade. That is just, it's a bit too much. I mean, obviously I like hot pink, but I don't like a glowy hot pink. That's the hot pink one there. And then the Wet n Wild one. This one is super powdery and it is very pigmented compared to all of the other blushes. It is the most pigmented one there. So nice shade, nude coral type of color, but it's just so pigmented and it's so powdery that I think that's part of the reason why I don't love it. So there we've got all of the blushes that I have been working on recently and will be working on shortly. And I'm excited to see how I feel about them. I'm excited to get more use out of these 4 blushes because this project is not just about decluttering blushes. It's also making sure that I'm using all the blushes in my collection. Not just the ones that I don't like as much, but also the ones that are favorites and that I tend to save and savor and never reach for, which, by the way, I also have 2 new blushes, neither of which I have used yet and that I did not include in this, but maybe that'll be my treat blush for the second quarter of the year. And by quarter, it's more like third because obviously I'm talking about the first 4 months today. But these are the ones that I'm hoping to declutter from my collection. Let me know what you think of this project, and if you are doing a blush project yourself, I would love to hear about that because I feel like project pans are fairly common, but blush roulettes are like a little bit more niche. So thank you so much for watching today, and let's talk about a book that I have been reading lately. I'm starting out the year strong. I'm reading Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty by Patrick Radden Keefe. I was really not looking forward to this. In fact, I had it on my holds list at the library for the maximum amount of time, and I was just putting off reading it because it is huge. This is over 500 pages, super, super dense, obviously nonfiction, and it is stellar. So good, so engrossing. I mean, I'm more than halfway through. I think there's maybe 100 and a bit pages left because quite a bit of it is like notes, bibliography, etc. because it is that type of book. I recently finished Babel, which I talked about in a previous video, which was also excellent. These are both 5-star reads, so starting off 2025 strong. So basically, if you're not familiar with the Sacklers, I'm sure you are familiar with the opioid crisis in the United States, which took hold from the late 90s, 97, 98-ish until I would say the mid 2010s. And basically the Sackler family are the ones who created OxyContin, oxycodone, and are the reason for the opioid crisis. It's honestly appalling. I keep reading out sections to my partner because I cannot believe what was going on, like what this family did, the way that they fought tooth and nail to keep this drug, like to keep making the same amount of money that they were making. Basically, it was raking in over $1 billion for them per year, and they were getting sued left, right, and center because of not only the fact that the drug was so addictive, but because they put out all of these marketing claims like you cannot get addicted to OxyContin. And if you do, it's because you previously struggled with addiction. They talked down the strength of the drug. So doctors, when they were prescribing it, thought that it was a lot less strong than morphine, when in fact it is a lot stronger than morphine. Just like everything they did was so, so illegal. The FDA, which is the entity that, allows your drug to pass and it's considered safe and so it's allowed to be sold in the American market. They got the people who work there in their back pocket, like they were literally working at Purdue, which is the entity that creates the drug. Anyways, it's just shocking from the very first page. It's the story of a nation in crisis. It's the story of empire and a family who does not care who they kill in their attempt to enrich themselves. I kind of wish there was more of a contrast. Well, I guess this is thinking broader scale, but just like what people go to jail for minor misdemeanors or, you know, taking drugs. They are literally jailed if they take drugs because drugs are illegal. Whereas this family consciously, like, they know that they are killing thousands and thousands of people per year, and they just keep pumping out the drugs and pretending that they don't know and pretending that people aren't able to get addicted. Like, it's just appalling. And they don't go to jail. They are not held accountable. Like, they're literally killing thousands and thousands of people and they don't go to jail. And then someone is just taking drugs for their own hobby or whatever and they go to jail. Like, it just makes no sense. White collar crime, capitalism, the justice system, it makes no sense. Anyways, excellent book. Highly, highly recommend. Do not read it on audio. I read this author's previous book, Say Nothing, on audio, and I found it so hard to get through. But I think it's just because there's so many names, there's so much going on, and it's really hard to keep track when you're listening. Whereas with a book, you can go back a couple pages, you know, you can check who someone is. So anyways, read it on paper. Highly, highly recommend. But that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time.